The woman at the checkpoint didn't raise her voice when the 5 men stepped closer. She didn't reach for a weapon. She simply looked up from the dust-streaked barrier and told them to get lost. The men laughed, because all they saw was a lone woman standing between them and the road beyond. None of them understood that, in her calm silence, she was already calculating how many seconds it would take to end them all. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're rewatching from. I love knowing who is listening. Her name was Captain Mara Hale, though no one at that checkpoint knew it. To them, she was just another uniform in a forgotten corner of the world, where the heat pressed down like a living thing, and the wind carried the smell of metal and dry earth. She had been awake for 19 hours, running on coffee and discipline, her shoulders aching beneath her gear. She told herself she was just tired. She did not tell herself she was lonely. The checkpoint was temporary, thrown together with concrete blocks and rusted wire after reports of weapons moving through the region. Villagers passed through everyday families, farmers, old men with eyes full of suspicion. Mara had learned to read people the way others read books, the way their weight shifted, the way their eyes avoided hers, the way their hands hovered just a little too close to their belts. These 5 didn't belong to the story the road usually told. They approached together, too close, too confident. Their boots kicked up dust that floated in the sunlight like ash. One of them smiled, slow and ugly, his gaze sliding over her as if she were an inconvenience rather than an obstacle. "Road's closed," she said, voice even. "Turn around." They didn't. Inside her chest, her heart tightened, not with fear, but with disappointment. She had hoped they'd leave. She had hoped today wouldn't require anything more than patience. But hope was a luxury she'd learned to release early in her career. Mara remembered her mother's voice then, from years ago, asking why she chose a path that would keep her so far from home. She remembered not having an answer that made sense to anyone else. She just knew that some people were built to stand in the space between chaos and the innocent, even when no one clapped, even when no one knew their name. The men circled wider now, murmuring to each other. One reached out and tapped the barrier with his knuckles, a casual challenge. Around them, the air grew tense. Nearby truck idled to a stop. Villagers watched from a distance, whispers rippling through the small crowd like a nervous breath. Mara felt the weight of the decision settle in her gut. If she escalated too fast, innocent people could get hurt. If she waited too long, she might not get another chance. She thought of her team miles away, trusting her judgment. She thought of the oath she'd taken, the one that didn't mention recognition or gratitude and only responsibility. "Last warning," she said quietly. The tallest man laughed again and stepped forward. That was when everything changed. Mara moved. To the untrained eye, it looked like instinct. To those who understood violence, it was precision. She closed distance in a heartbeat, redirecting momentum, striking nerves instead of flesh. One man went down gasping, another stumbling back in shock. Her movements were efficient, controlled, almost gentle because brutality wasted time. The crowd froze. Dust hung in the air as if the world itself had paused to watch. A third man reached for something hidden beneath his jacket. Mara's hand was already there, twisting, disarming, sending the weapon clattering onto the road. She felt the tremor in her own fingers, then not fear, but the aftershock of restraint. She could end this faster. She chose not to. Sirens sounded in the distance, faint but growing. Backup she'd called minutes earlier, quietly, without drama. The remaining 2 men backed away, faces pale, bravado shattered. For the first time, they saw her not as a woman alone, but as something else entirely. Something they had underestimated. When the soldiers arrived, the tension broke like a snapped wire. The men were restrained. The crowd exhaled. Someone clapped once, uncertainly, then another. Soon, applause spread, not loud but sincere, heavy with relief. Mara stood still, her breathing steadying as adrenaline drained from her veins. She felt suddenly exposed, aware of the dust on her boots, the sweat cooling on her skin. She wondered briefly if anyone would ever understand how close it had come to going wrong. A young boy stepped forward from the crowd and held out a bottle of water. His hand shook as much as hers did. "Thank you," he said. She accepted it, nodding, unsure what words would fit the moment. None of her training covered gratitude like this. Later, when the road reopened and the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in copper and fire, Mara sat alone by the barrier. She replayed the moment in her mind, the choice to hold back, the choice to protect rather than punish. It would never make headlines. It wasn't meant to. She thought again of home, of distance, of the quiet strength it took to do the right thing when no one was watching. She smiled, just a little, knowing she'd choose the same path again. Because courage isn't loud, it stands firm, even when the world mistakes it for weakness. The road grew quiet as night settled in, the dust returning to the earth, the danger passing like a storm that never quite arrived. And somewhere in that stillness, the echo of her first words remained, transformed into something truer than a warning. If this story moved you, share your thoughts in the comments and let others know where you're watching from. Subscribe for more stories like this, because sometimes the strongest battles are won by those who refuse to be seen, but never refuse to stand.